So now we get to outlets. I found these gray shallow, these are plastic. I found these shallow boxes. I could only find single gang. I wasn't able to find any double gang, 2 gang or 3 gang. So the ones that you would use for 2 or 3 switches. But I found these single gang shallow boxes. They work really well for the InSoFast. Most of the blue plastic boxes are just way too deep to use with the InSoFast because they'd end up sticking out over an inch. So we're going to go over the top of this with 1/2 inch sheetrock. And one of the things that I struggled with a little bit was trying to figure out how to get the outlets to be stationary in the InSoFast. It didn't matter how close that I cut them, there just wasn't, I couldn't get them tight enough in there where I felt like they were going to stay and be a good solution long term. So what I ended up doing was I built this little jig, and so it's just a piece of 1x4 that I've cut down. So what I did is I ripped down these little pieces here that are a 1/2 inch in depth. I drilled my hole, drilled a hole in the center. The outlet is obviously already on this one, but when your wiring is roughed in, you've just got a single wire coming out, or maybe 2 wires coming out if it's in line with multiple outlets. So I would just pull the wire through, and I would use these are just standard sheetrock screws. Keep in mind, these will only work on the plastic boxes that I'm talking about. You've got to do something a little bit different for the metal boxes, but I'll talk about that here in just a second. So without the outlet in, obviously, you've got just your single wire, so I would put it through there, and then I drilled these holes, and just using simple sheetrock screws, I would run these into the screw holes where the outlet mounts. You're not going to mess up your outlet holes. Don't worry about that. I've done it on every one of these and it works fantastic. So what I did is I would put this on here and just use a piece of strapping. So I ended up using just drop of wire. So I put a screw through the wire, through a piece of Romex here, and then come across and put another piece here just to hold this firm up against the wall. So attach this to your outlet, pull the outlet out, spray foam behind there, put this on, and then use your strapping and let it dry for the night. And then come back the next day, remove your strapping, remove these 2 screws, pull it out, and you have a super solid mount for all of your outlets. So that's how I did the single gang outlets. It's been a great solution. I've used it on every one now. This took me about 15 minutes to put together. Use these. They will keep you out of trouble because we're going to do 1/2 inch sheetrock on here. So you want these to be proud of the surface of the InSoFast. So that way when you put your sheetrock, you can just put your cover plate right over the top of it and you don't have any additional work that you need to do after that. So that's the single gang. Now let me show you the double gang and triple gang. So for the double gang, what I ended up having to do was use metal boxes. For the most part, as I said, this is an older home. It was built in either the late 70s or early 80s, and because it was cinder block, all of the junction boxes and outlet boxes were metal. I'm not a big fan of metal for a number of reasons. One, it's really easy to cut a wire. It's really easy to short out on the boxes. Several of the outlets that I pulled out had shorted on the boxes at one point or another. So I'm not a huge fan of them. However, there is not a good solution for shallow boxes when you're wanting to do a 2 gang plug or even a 3 gang light switch. or a 3-switch junction box. So the metal boxes are about the same thickness as those gray boxes. They run right about 2 inches. But what I had to do on those, I went ahead and used the jig that I showed you a few minutes ago, but instead of using the drywall screws in the screw holes, because they're a machine thread and you can mess those up, I just pulled the screws out of a plug set and just used those to hold it out. Proud of the InSoFast surface. When you're using the metal junction boxes, you want to make sure that you use these plastic cable connectors. These are imperative for making sure that your wire doesn't get sliced on the metal box when you do the knockout. So you want to make sure to use these. They're really inexpensive. You can get them at the big box home improvement stores. The other thing they do is they prevent the wire from pulling out. So they're basically a one-way connector. So once you push the wire through, it keeps the wire from pulling back out. But again, they're plastic. Once you do your knockout in your metal box, you just pop them in. You actually push them in through the inside, and they're a really good solution. You need to be using these. So those are how I've done single gang, double gang, the inside corners, the outside corners. Just some of the things that I thought were worth sharing that I had to struggle through a little bit.